Good morning for a little while longer here with the Shade Tree Mechanic. I am your host, Adam, and this is a continuation of my last video. I know that the video is getting a little extensive here, but you have to be extensive when you're dealing with these riding mowers, when you're talking about deciding whether or not to buy one for either your own purposes or flipping purposes. And so I hope that you find that information very helpful. I'm not done with that description, so I will continue here. We left off talking about the transmission and its condition and things to look for if you're having an issue with the motor, or not the motor, but the transmission going into gear, forward, backward, and whether or not it's going at an appropriate speed. So I will go into that a little bit, but the very first thing that I wanted to continue on here with the transmission, flip this. You definitely want to take a look at the transmission. You want to see if there's any leaking of the transmission oil, which it's kind of a subjective term to say that it's oil, because it's really not really oil. It's a very it's a slightly runny, viscous grease, but it's called transmission oil, and they definitely have some thickness to it. So you want to make sure that you're not seeing any, and generally speaking, you have to look around the entire transmission to make this determination. But if you're looking at one side of the transmission and it's as clean as this one is, it's pretty easy to assume, and you don't want to do that. It's pretty easy to assume that the rest of the transmission is going to look equally as good. But you can't make that assumption. So you do want to try to look and see as much of the transaxle, the transmission, as you possibly can, including right here at the hubs, because sometimes there is a seal that will bust right here and it will actually leak right there. Now you have the mower sitting for any length of time, and you can tell, you'll see a wet spot where the mower was parked, and it will drip. And you want to make sure that you don't have that issue. So you want to check the transaxle hubs right here. You want to check the transmission as a whole. Make sure you don't see any wet spots or leaking. You want to go around the entire transmission and make as much of an educated guess about its condition as you can. So you're taking a look and you see that there's no issues. You can't see anything with the seal that's wrong with it. And while you're in here, you take a look at the gearing, the little levers and stuff. Make sure that those are in good shape, because that is very important for being able to move forward and backward. So there's some levers there. There's a spring-loaded lever right there you can see, and all sorts of other things. This right here, right in front of me, is the other deck adjustment. But that little spring-loaded lever right there that you can see, there's two of them. There's one horizontally black, it looks like, sort of, in the picture, although it is gray. It's actually not black. There's a black connector right there though with it, but there's two spring loads right there, and they look like they're in fairly good shape. They don't have a problem. Then there's this little lever thing over here off to the left, a little pin looking thing hanging down. Those are all moving parts. So it's very important to take a look at anything that's a potentially moving part and make sure that it's not in bad shape, it's not in bad condition, and it's not going to cause you problems. The other thing, like I said, I was going to talk about with this transmission, these hydrostatics have a problem where they will suck air. This is something I was just discussing with you on the last video. Unfortunately, that had to become a two-parter. But so they will suck air, and it will prevent these drive wheels here from going forward or backward, or it will start to slow them down on the response. I actually had this happen to me on my Cub Cadet. The transmission had sucked so much air, it started putting pressure internally to where it will not function. It doesn't engage properly. So I had to bleed the transmission in order to get it to function. And there is a procedure for that, and I will tell you what that procedure is. The jack, which is currently in the wrong location for this, I've got it up for the purposes of having looked at the blades and checking their condition out, which they look fine. I will probably go ahead and pull them off and sharpen them before I set this up for sale. But that jack right there actually needs to go to the back of the mower here, under this plate, where you can see there's a connection for a ball hitch. So that little hole right there, so that little plate is flat and it's strong enough you can actually take that jack and stick it underneath there, jack the rear of the tractor up just enough to where the wheels are not on the ground. And this of course means that the front of the mower is on the ground while the back of the mower is hiked up a little bit. You don't need it hiked up a lot to do this, but what you want to do, there is a transaxle disengage lever right here, and you want to pull that out with the back end in the air. You will then start the mower up like you normally would, and please do this carefully, as some of the mower is in the air. It's not going to be the most stable thing in the world to work with. With a hydrostatic transmission, you've got two sides of one pedal that act like a drive mechanism for this tractor. So pushing forward here makes the tractor go forward, and pushing down here makes the tractor back up. So if you find that your transmission is not working for whatever reason, you want to make sure you check this first. Try to bleed your transmission. So with the rear of the tractor hiked up and the motor on, and it needs to be on operational RPMs, meaning it's at full throttle, you're going to have the transaxle lever out to disengage the back wheels because you don't need them turning. And the only way that this works is if it is disengaged. So with this method, what you want to do is you want to press forward and hold for approximately 5 to 10 seconds. Then you want to go backwards and hold for another 5 to 10 seconds. And you're going to repeat that process 5 times. That will get rid of the air inside your transmission system, and it will allow your mower to regain its ability to go forward and backward. You'll know that because when you put this lever back in and you drop the mower's rear end and you remove your jack from the area, that your tractor moves like it's supposed to. If you do this procedure and it still does not move, then you do actually have a transmission issue. You've got a problem that you need to look into. If you're not comfortable with repairing a transmission, there are transmissions that are available for sale, and the procedure can be found on videos online to tell you how to do it. And many mowers within certain model ranges and certain year ranges are going to have the same procedure. So even if you don't find your specific mower online on a video for how to do this, don't be discouraged. Look and see if the bolts are in the same locations. Look to see how the procedures are. They should be quite similar. You should be able to get an idea of how to do this very confidently with some of the videos. And I will actually tell you, there is a guy who does YouTube videos, and I really like his videos. He's very informative. I swear by his videos, and he does actually have a way to search his videos. He's got his own website. It's called Steve's Small Engine Saloon. He is a great resource for procedures like this. I'm not sure if it was his, I don't think it was his video, in fact, actually, that I was watching to do this particular, but he has so many videos out there, I can't imagine that he doesn't actually have the video on how to do these hydrostatic transmission maintenance and things of that nature. And I'm sure he's probably done more than one on how to do a replacement for a transaxle. It's not that hard. There could be another issue with the transmission. You could just need to refill the transmission, and that's where that transmission grease or transmission oil, whichever your model decides that it needs to use, has listed. So that's how you would do that. Is also probably on a video. I don't have that necessity right now, so I'm not going to get into a transmission that's perfectly good. I don't have one right now on me that I'm ready to work on to do a video. If I find one and I'm ready to work on it, I will probably go through that and do a video on that, step-by-step process for anyone who's viewing this video. I will tell you, it is a extensive process to do it. It's not hard, it's just very, very time intensive. It's like a 3-hour job for most people, between taking the transmission off and putting it back on. Now, that being said, there are others who can probably do it in an hour. You know, I mean, I can change a motor, you know, pretty quickly. It's not that hard to change a motor. You just disconnect everything and pull it, and you throw another one on, reconnect everything, and hope that it works. I mean, it's just the way most of us view these things. You know, is just we do what we have to do to get these things running. If we have a spare motor running around and we need one, we'll throw it in. You know, it's just the way it is. You know, we make sure that everything's hooked up right, and you know, sometimes things work out great and sometimes they don't. But you know, it's all worth trying. You know, if you're getting into this for the first time, or if you're not quite sure how the procedures work and everything, like I said, there's plenty of resource videos out there. Steve's Small Engine Saloon is just the one that I happen to recommend the most of, because I've gotten a lot out of his videos and I appreciate what he's doing. So I will endorse his videos all day long, because he's given me some great information. So that being said, though, you know, those are the major things that you want to look out for. The rest of the aesthetics and everything, you want to look at the rubber on the pedals and everything. You want to check the plastic on the handle here. It's a rubberized plastic. You know, you want to make sure that you're checking everything out, make sure everything works fine. I will tell you that if you're wanting to sell one of these things, for your own protection, legally speaking, make sure all the safety systems on the mower you are selling are working properly. The reality is this: a lot of people will disconnect kill switches and safety switches, and you know, I mean, yeah, I understand doing what you have to do to get a job done. I understand that, I really do. But for legal reasons, if you are selling these mowers, if you sell them without those safety switches operational, then you are leaving yourself open to lawsuits potentially if something goes wrong from a safety perspective on the piece of equipment that you are selling. When you're dealing with push mowers, you don't really have to worry about that all that much, because there really is only one safety switch on those things. You let go of the engage, disengage lever and the motor dies. That's really all there is. There's no other safety aspect built into those things for the most part. But in these riders, there's multiple safety switches on these things to help with the safe operation of these things. And if you are selling these things as a side hustle, make sure you are protecting yourself by not having a piece of equipment leave your property, leave your possession, if it doesn't have the proper safety switch activation. So, I mean, you got one on the seat. That's the one that most people are familiar with. There's one on the seat that if your blades are engaged, if you get up off that seat, the motor on that thing will die, the blades will stop, and there will be no chance for anyone to get injured by blades moving and no one expecting that, because you can't always tell that the blades are moving on these things if you don't know enough about them, especially if you're not familiar with these things. It would just sound to me, if I didn't have a familiarity with these, that the motor was just going, and I wouldn't necessarily know that the blades were going. So I can see how someone who doesn't know, prime example of that would be a little child. There have been plenty of accidents with little children, and we want to try to make sure that we prevent that. So that is my public service announcement for this particular subject here. Just make sure that those kill switches, the safety switches, all function properly. Don't deactivate one that's absolutely important to the operation safety of the motor and the mower, because you don't want that on your plate. You don't want someone coming back to you and saying the safety thing was an issue because someone got injured. So you don't want that. And that's the other thing. If you're not familiar with mowers, make sure you familiarize yourself with the equipment that you're working with. If you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it. Have someone show you if you're not comfortable. A lot of the working on these things, that's one thing, but the reality is the half of the operation is working on them. The other half, the most important half, is doing it safely. When you're using the equipment, knowing how to use it, knowing what's around you, that sort of thing. But the other part of that is making sure that you're not deactivating safety equipment that was meant to be used on these things, and they have reasons for those to be used. So that is my piece on safety and everything. And as I go through this, I probably will have other things to talk about safety related. How to do things safely and not injure yourself. I do recommend, if you're getting a mower and you're working on it, I do recommend getting some shatter and scratch resistant glasses to work with. The ones that I've currently got on are shatter resistant. They are considered a safety glass. They are they do have an OSHA safety rating on them. That is important for dealing with these mowers. It doesn't matter if it's a push mower or a rider. It's more important with a rider, given the fact that a lot of times you are under the motor itself, and you are working with fluids of varying degrees. You've got gasoline, you've got oil, and you've got grease and stuff like that. If you're working with starter fluid, or if you're working with carburetor cleaner, those substances can be very harmful, very toxic to you as a person working on these things. If you get them on your skin, or you get them in your eyes, especially your eyes, which is why the glasses are so important. I hardly ever take my glasses off when I'm working on these things, because there are times where a liquid will start spraying at you and you weren't expecting it to. There are times where you will drip grease or oil, and if you're underneath that drip, it can land anywhere. That being said, if you do get something on you, I'm pretty sure you are all well aware of this, but I'm going to say it anyways to cover the safety aspect, even drive it even more home than I usually would. Get it off as soon as possible. I mean, I know that it's not always possible to immediately wash off gasoline. I know it's not always possible to wash off oil and grease, but it really is important when you do wash it off. Try to wash it off as thoroughly as possible. I would, if I could, and I were you, get some mechanics gloves. It does help. It doesn't keep everything off, but get what you can, because your hands, which are part of your tool collection, that's really what it boils down to, is those are your primary tools, is your hands. You're going to be using those. You want to take care of them. You don't want your skin to crack. You don't want your skin to absorb gasoline or oil or anything like that. It's not always possible to get it off immediately, but get it off as soon as possible. Limit your exposure would be the primary message I would have there, as far as gas, oil, and grease and other chemicals that you would possibly be dealing with is. And if you are going to be working with something where you know you're going to be dealing with caustic chemicals, I mean, there are times where we deal with acid. There's times where we deal with the battery acid especially. I mean, they do actually still sell batteries where you can charge the battery yourself. Take every precaution, use the safety equipment that they recommend when you're dealing with these things, in order to make sure that you protect yourself and keep yourself safe. It's just very important, and I'll be the first to admit, though, I've gone in and I've been working on a mower, and I'll go in the house and I'll have a sandwich, and I might wash my hands, but I guarantee you I don't get everything off. I'm still a little bit greasy, so I actually put myself into my work, and I also put my work into me. There are times where I will add a little bit of seasoning, if you want to call it that, to my sandwich and, for lunch. And so, you have to keep these things in mind, that your exposure to these chemicals needs to be as limited as possible. It's not always possible to be as clean as you would like to be, but you should try to do that as much as you possibly can. Getting back to the condition of this mower and checking it over for the average person, the other primary thing that you want to take a look at is, you wanted to check the spindles and the deck and everything, and a lot of the condition of the belt and the deck parts that are moving, the spindles and the pulleys and everything, is going to have to do with debris buildup. Now, you see these covers on here, and they do a pretty decent job to keep a lot of material out of there. However, you will get buildup from time to time. My recommendation is get either a high-powered air compressor or get a pressure washer and clean that out if you can. You do not want that debris buildup inside those spindle covers, because what it's going to do is it's going to promote deterioration of your belt, as well as the bearings inside the spindles themselves. The more material that's in there, the harder those bearings are going to have to work, the hotter they will get, and the sooner they will break down. And I will tell you, there are some videos in there on how to pull apart a spindle and repack it. I do recommend doing that. By the manual's recommendation, I believe it says you should do it at least once every 2 years. It might be as much as once a year, but you do want to do it at least once every 2 years, especially if you're mowing significantly or if you've got a large piece of property. I would say if you're mowing very consistently, if you're doing it just once a week during the mowing season, then you can probably get away with no more than once every 2 years. You really can, depending on the size of your property. Anything over like 2 acres where you're going to be mowing a lot and you're putting a lot of hours, therefore a lot of wear and tear on your mower, you do maybe want to up your maintenance schedule on that a little bit, maybe to once a year, and do it that way. And the best idea, of course, is to do a winterization at the end of the year, and if you have time during the winter, do the preparation for spring during the time in which you're not expecting to have to actually use the equipment. So if you're in a section of the country where you get a true winter and you don't have to worry about mowing during the course of the winter months, then you want to make sure that you have a maintenance schedule in which reflects what your seasons look like. You want to make sure that you try to do this on a downtime. It's not always possible. I understand life gets in the way, but the reason why so many people have an issue with their equipment is because they they neglect it. That's point blank. It's either by them not knowing how to do it, not caring, or they just sheer plain as day don't have the time. And I do understand that. I understand getting busy, but if you want your equipment to work when you're expecting it to, you have to do the maintenance. There is no way to avoid it. It's the same thing with your car. Your car needs regular oil changes. On these mowers, the recommendation is every 50 to 150, depending on the manufacturer's recommendations. And I do recommend, and each model might be different on that. So if you have John Deere, one model of John Deere versus another model of John Deere might have a different recommended maintenance regime. And you want to find out what that specific model or that specific motor's recommendations are and try to adhere to them as closely as possible. So if your mowing season is 50 hours or more, you do want to do an oil change every year. Okay? If it's 50 hours or less, you can push that a lot of times to every 2 years. Now, I look personally at the oil. I want to check what the color looks like. I want to check and see what the level is. And I want to do that fairly regularly. It's a good idea to check your oil level. They say you should check it every single time, but I find that that's sometimes overkill. So you see how nice that oil looks. Now, it's not by any means 100% fresh, but here's what I can say about this oil, given the color and the fluidity of this oil. This oil was changed last year. I can say that with 100% certainty because there has not been enough mowing time on this mower this year for that oil to look like that. So, I mean, it was probably changed late season last year, which is what I would expect. The oil just sitting is not going to collect any debris or anything like that. It's not going to deteriorate very quickly. It's going to last quite a while. So, I would say, we're currently in May. I'm going to say that the oil was probably changed in September, October of last year. And the oil filter, how clean and shiny that oil filter is, actually tells me exactly that. If not, it was probably done at the very beginning of this year, sometime in February. Because it can't be any more than 3 months. So it's got a fairly recent oil change on it, and therefore it doesn't need one this year. The air filter looks great. It's fine to go. The blades look fine, but they are going to require some sharpening. So that's really all I'm going to have to do. The oil is a little low, so I will have to fill that up. But other than that, I'm just going to take a pressure washer to this thing, clean it up nice, and once I'm done with the blade sharpening, putting the oil in, I'm going to advertise it for sale. And in my market, I can get anywhere from $700 to $1,000 for this mower. And that's what I'm expecting to be able to pull out. So by the time I get done with everything that I've got to do, we're talking about a $300 to $400 profit minimal with this. That's a nice quick turnaround. This mower will not last long at the price point, given the condition that it's in and the hours that are presented on that hour meter. So, that's what I'm expecting for this thing. For those of you who are in a fix and flip mentality with these things, that should be some good information for you. Of course, like I said, you want to check and see what similar models are going for in your area. You have to gauge your market. You really do. The thing is, every market is different, and your valuation is going to be based on what the average is. So right now I'm seeing an average of $700 to $1,000, maybe a little over $1,000 for these things in used condition. And that's really a good price when you consider how much they are going for brand new. A mower of this type with that horsepower on it and all the features that this thing has, This is still considered a basic mower, even though it's got cruise control, it's got blade activation when going in reverse, which some of the mowers don't have that. The Cub Cadets do, but you have to actually activate the switch, which is a safety concern switch, in order to do that, to make sure that you're getting that done the way that you expect to. But this actually has a reverse function for using the blades in reverse. And most of your mowers will actually disengage. It'll actually kill the motor if you try to do that, because they don't want you backing up while having the blades engaged, because it can be a safety concern. But this mower, in the fact that it's a basic mower in this condition, in this area, anywhere from $700 to $1,000 all day long. And the new ones are going for no less than $3,000 in the John Deeres. The Cub Cadets, you might get a better deal with a similar functioning and features mower. You might get a better deal. It might cost you $2,200. But the reality is the prices have gone up. People are looking for a bargain. If your goal is to fix and flip as quickly as possible, set your price to where it's attractive. That's just the way it is. These people are looking for a deal. A lot of people will look first at what is available used in their market to see how much money they can save. The more money they can save, the more attractive the deal is. And if you add incentive, and I'm not going to tell you what I do, because it's not necessarily going to work for everyone. I might decide to tell you guys later on what I do for an incentive to buy these things. But I will tell you that I do additives for the fuel system. I do make sure that when I'm dealing with fuel systems, I add carburetor cleaner to the carb. If it needs it, I'll flush out the carburetor if I need to do that. Sometimes that involves pulling it off. Other times it means simply putting an additive into the fuel. I recommend putting an ethanol eliminator into your fuel. I do not recommend going and getting premium fuel that's ethanol free. And the reason why is because overall you will spend more money buying the premium gas than just buying the additive to stick it in. Okay? The additive to take the ethanol out of your fuel is a lot cheaper once you do hour for hour, dollar for dollar, how much you're spending going and getting the gas, putting it in your tank, going and getting the additive. And buy the additive when you're already at the grocery store. They have it at Walmart. Most people are shopping at Walmart, so go to Walmart, get your additive. Don't bother going to the hardware store or the auto parts store or anything like that, because they will actually charge you a little bit more than Walmart will. But when you can get the same stuff, the same exact stuff at Walmart. There are very few exceptions to that rule. I will actually tell you, I use personally in my mowers during the running season, I will use ethanol shield. That works during the running season. During the off season, if I expect it to stay stagnant for a while and not move or not start these things, I will switch to Stable. I will go to Stable 360 or Stable Storage, and I will put that in the additive. And what that does is it keeps my fuel nice and fresh. It prevents ethanol buildup. It prevents buildup and a collection of a film inside the jets of your carburetor. It keeps your fuel system healthy. And 9 times out of 10, maybe 9.9 times out of 10, I don't know what the exact ratio is, but when you do the additives, if you're using regular gas with ethanol in it, and you're doing that to save money, 9 times out of 10, you add the additive in there. If it's been sitting for a while, it will start right up at the beginning of the next mowing season. A lot of people can't say that because they don't use additives in their fuel, and what happens is the ethanol will build up inside the jets of your carburetor. It prevents your motor from starting. The other issue that you do run into is battery drain. A lot of people do not take their batteries out of their riding mowers at the end of the season. You really should do that. You really should. And if you can, get yourself a battery maintainer. Stick it on a battery maintainer. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to keep it on the maintainer all season, but you should go around periodically and check your battery to see if it's getting low. If it's getting low on the voltage and or amperage, put it on the maintainer. Bring it back up. You can sometimes coax more than 1 year out of these EverStart batteries. I don't necessarily recommend getting just an EverStart battery. If you have a little bit more money to work with, go ahead, go get a Duralast, go get an Interstate, go get something that's better quality than an EverStart battery. Now, Walmart's great for a lot of things. You can go and get the chemicals and stuff like that you need. Some Walmarts you can even go and get gas at. Sam's Club, if you have a membership, you can save gas money there. You're going to be spending a lot of money in gasoline if you have a gasoline yard equipment, and you want to save as much as you possibly can. The last thing you need, though, when you're talking about these gas-powered yard equipment, is unnecessary expenses related to maintenance. You can avoid a lot of it by simply doing what you have to do to make sure the system stays operational like it should. The air filter, make sure that you're cleaning those out or replacing them as needed. The oil changes, make sure you're cleaning those out and replacing as needed. Do your oil changes. The fuel system, make sure you're putting the additive in there. You can use the ethanol-free fuel if you have the money to do so and you don't want to bother with the additives. I don't recommend that because, like I said, it's more expensive. But do what you have to do to prevent yourself a headache in the future when you're talking about dealing with these pieces of equipment. They will treat you right if you treat them right. If you maintain them, they will not cause you a problem. There are going to be mechanical things that come up, that's not preventable. Everything is going to break down sooner or later, but you can limit that expense to a lot of degree, especially when you're talking about a piece of equipment that's a few years old. The maintenance becomes even more important the older a piece gets. So do your due diligence, maintain it. You won't have to buy a mower every other year. You won't have to buy a weed eater every other year. You won't have to buy a chainsaw every other year. I want to beat this into the ground. You won't have to spend the money. Now, I can't do anything if you want to spend the money. If you want to go buy a new mower every year or every other year, by all means, if you have the money to do it. But most of us are going to be just like me. They're going to want to maintain and salvage what they have and maintain it to a degree where they know they can trust it. They know it's reliable, and they're going to just go out there to their garage or their storage shed or whatever, and they're just going to turn the key and fire it up, or pull the cord and fire it up. That's all that these people are really wanting. So if you're trying to sell these things, you make sure that you are giving these people who are your customers, if that is your goal to sell these, make sure you're giving them as much information as they can use. If their level is on par with yours, ask them if they know. Make sure that you're not trying to come across in a way that is offensive or could be rubbed the wrong way kind of situation. Ask them if they are aware of these things. If they aren't, volunteer the information, because the more information you can give them about how they can maintain their equipment themselves for less maintenance costs in the future, you're going to have a repeat customer on your hand. If something comes up, something breaks down, they're going to reach for your number first. They're going to want to remember your name. They want to go to you. They want to give you their business. And if that's something that you're looking to do as a side hustle, that's beneficial. There's no lose in that. You just sit there and and give them the best customer service you possibly can, and make sure that they are fully aware that you're willing and able to help them out. And that's really all I have to say about that. These pieces of equipment, they're really good pieces of equipment. Most of them are not junk. There are some exceptions, and when I find one that's absolute junk, I'll probably do a video on that. There's a lot of videos out there, though, for do not buy this, instead buy that. All you have to do is look. Recommendations, and everyone has a different favorite. Some people like John Deere, some people like Cub Cadet, some people swear by Craftsman, some people by Troy-Bilt, Ariens, Gravely, whatever the case may be. There are favorites out there, and you have to know, when you're doing these things, that these people, they all have their favorites, and you can't present yourself as biased with these things. There are some pieces of equipment, if you don't feel comfortable working on it, and the customer asks you, hey, can you work on this? If you're not comfortable, you don't like the equipment, it's hard to work on. Sometimes that pays more, but you're more than welcome to say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you out with that. And you can explain why, or you can just leave it at that. It's all about your relationship to that customer. You have to judge what that is, But everyone has their favorites. Every one of us has our favorites. I like Cub Cadet myself. I did find some things that I really like on this John Deere. I had actually considered keeping this John Deere for myself and possibly selling my Cub Cadet. But in reality, my Cub Cadet has a bigger deck. I could probably put a bigger deck on this one. I could probably get as high as a 48 without any major changings on this thing. I could probably do that and make it work for me. There's some very smart things I like on this mower. But then again, I've been using my Cub Cadet now for, I bought it in 2019, so, we're going on 5 years. This year will be 5 years. I've had my Cub Cadet for 5 years. A lot of people don't have their mowers for any more than 2. So, and that goes to show how important maintenance is. They can last. Even the newer pieces of equipment, they can last. They just have to be maintained. And so whenever I have someone ask me if I have a expectancy on how long a mower or a weed eater or a push mower, rider or push, doesn't matter, or a chainsaw or anything like that, if I have anyone ask me how long I expect that equipment to last, I always give them this example. There are cars from the 1920s still driving. Do the math. That's over 100 years. There are cars from the 1920s still driving. So the reality is simple. You take care of something, it will take care of you. There are exceptions. Of course, everything has a mechanical failure that you're not expecting. You may end up throwing a rod or losing a seal or something like that. The oil goes bad, creates a problem, blows the engine block. The engine blocks, they do go through heating and cooling. These are air-cooled engines for the most part. There are very few out there that are actually liquid-cooled, and most of those are your bigger pieces of equipment, your medium to large size mowers or tractors, and those have other potential issues when you get involved with such a very complicated system that becomes. That's more like your car than it is a mower at that point. So, it has a lot more in common with your car systems than it does a mower, even though that is its function. So, but the answer is simple. For the most part, with exceptions to be expected, mechanical failures do happen. A mower, a weed eater, a blower, chainsaw, whatever you have, should last you your lifetime. Simple as that. Properly maintained, it should last as long as you decide to keep it. That's really all it is. I've seen a lot of people take pieces of equipment that they've had for 5 years and sell it. And they'll sell it for a decent price. As old as it is, as many hours as it has, they will sell it for a decent price. Know your market. Know what people are buying in your area and what they are buying it for as far as price goes. That's as simple as it is, right there. It's as simple as it gets. Know your market, know your price point, know your repair cost to add to your price point, because that is important. That goes to your overall expense on the project. I've got $350 into this mower as a purchase. I'm going to have $351 into it overall expense. My profit margin becomes double what I bought it for. I will clear 100% of what my input into this mower is. If I get $700, I will clear 100% of what I got into it. My price point and my profit margin, 100%. You cannot beat that margin. It's a quick flip. And if all you want to do is push mowers, if those are your bread and butter, which for me, that is most of what I do. Push mowers and self-propelleds. Riders, I've really kind of just started getting into trying to flip these things. I have done work on them for customers, and I do turn a little bit of a profit in that. But the fact of the matter is, if you're trying to make money, you've got to decide what your best efforts are going to be put towards. If you can fix and flip a push mower way quicker than you can ever do a rider, then push mowers is probably where you're at. If you're specializing in riders is where you're at. If you're specializing in chainsaws is where you're at. I mean, you have to decide what you want to work on. And even if it's electrics, I'm not going to put anyone down who works on electrics. There are people out there who are saving hundreds of dollars to their customers just by being able to work on these electrics that the companies are so adamant about pushing. So, that being said, if they can save them some money and make some money on the side, by all means, why not? Your side hustle is up to you. Just make sure you're doing it smartly. The smartest way to do it is to know your market. Know yourself, know your market, know your capabilities, know your price point, know your sell point. Average your profit margin to where it's comfortable for you. Some people would buy this mower for $350 and they would turn around and sell it for $500, and they would clear $150. I could do that, and it would probably sell the same day that I advertised it. It's not where I'm at. It's not what I'm wanting to do. I have made that type of exception. In fact, I've actually given away mowers a time or two. It's not a hard thing to do to be generous or charitable or anything like that for me. Everyone has to gauge where they're at. You have to decide what it is that makes it worth your time. I know another guy that I've come acquainted with out here. He's a really nice guy. Become friends with him. And he specializes in riders. And he will flip a rider the same week in which he gets it. That's just the way he is. That's his bread and butter. He's retired. he has the time to do that. So, it's not a major thing for him. He's got a retirement income coming in, so he doesn't have to charge an arm and a leg. He has actually come across some really good deals. He has told me he's bought a mower for $50 because simply someone thought it wouldn't run. And this is how stupid this can get. He changed the fuse in the ignition system, and the mower fired right up. He changed the battery in another, and it fired right up. And he doesn't spend any more than $100 a mower. I have gone fairly high, as you can tell, but I will only do that if I think that the turnaround is worth it to me. We're talking about $350 and no less than $300 worth of profit. $350, $400 worth of profit. I'm expecting a sale of anywhere from $700 to $1,000 on this thing. I'm probably going to be expecting no less than $800. That's a good payday. That's, that's over a week worth of pay for a lot of people. 500 would be still more than a week's worth of pay. So if I sold it for $800, I'd get a $500 profit. So that's not bad at all. You have to crunch the numbers. That's what makes sense to me. And if you're looking to do this as a side hustle, as a supplemental income, I do recommend, if you have some know-how or you want some know-how, the videos, if you don't know what you're doing, but you want to know what you're doing, this interests you like it does me, then you can do it. Videos can help. So that's this installment of the Shade Tree Mechanic. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. I know that I'm kind of windy. I've been told that I talk a lot, and I don't try to do that with most of my videos. I usually try to keep my videos at 30 minutes or so, maybe a little less for some, but the information is important, especially if you have an interest in doing this work. Yes, I'm not going to say that it's not hard, because it can be hard, but it's actually really simple. The physical labor in it is the difficult part a lot of times. It's having the right tools, or knowing the tools that you need in the first place to do a job, and making sure that you're not wasting time hunting and pecking and making a trip to the store for something that you don't have. I mean, yeah, you will run into that, and there will be some expense with doing that. Keep track of what your expenses are. That's the other thing that I think is really important. On my equipment, I will take pictures, and I will edit my pictures to show what I paid for something. And I will itemize what I spent on repairs. If you can do that and you see that you're still making money, then you can kind of gauge how many hours you spent working on that piece of equipment versus what you got for that piece of equipment in profit, and then gauge how much you're making per hour. I will tell you, when I'm doing a repair for a customer, I do charge $30 an hour with a minimum of one, and I will also include in my charges parts and materials. That's on top of my hourly rate. So the caveat there is, I will not make a repair or purchase a part without consent from the customer. I keep them informed at every juncture of what I find is going on with their mower or their weed eater or whatever piece of equipment I'm working on. I will do that, and I will message them. I'll give them a call and say, hey, I found this is wrong with it. and this is what needs to be done to fix your problem. And do I have permission to get it? I will, if I don't have a research into how much the part's going to cost at the time, I will tell them I need to do some research on this, and I will get back to you with a price point, and you can make the decision from that point forward as to whether or not you want to have it purchased and repaired, and that's really up to them. I also do something that most people do not do when it comes to customer repairs. If I cannot fix it, if I have purchased parts, if they want to keep the parts, they pay for the parts. But I do not charge them for something I cannot fix. That's me. I found a lot of customers like that policy. And I charge in a manner that states I only charge for actual wrenching time on their equipment. A lot of people will charge $30 an hour no matter what they're doing. If they're doing research on what the problem is, I don't charge unless it becomes extensive for research or troubleshooting into what the problem with the mower is or whatever it is I'm working on. I don't charge for that unless it becomes a laborious process. I don't charge for that in general. So, and I will charge only actual wrenching time. So the moment I start wrenching on the mower is when I start my charge time with a minimum of 1 hour. That makes the most sense to me. It brings the most value to the customer. I had not last week, but the week before, I had a customer's mower out here at my house, and I allowed him to use a push mower, and that's what he was having me work on, was a basic push mower. It had about a 6.25 or 6.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton motor on it. Really nice older Craftsman, and it was a decent mower. Really, really good mower, but it needed a carburetor clean. Now, I can clean the carburetor. That's not a problem. It's not a problem to clean a carburetor, but the weather was not cooperating. I stated in another video that you don't want to deal with fuel systems when the wind is blowing. You don't want to try to clean a carburetor when the wind is blowing and dust is blowing around, stuff like that, for obvious reasons. It'll clog your fuel system up. And I had told him, I was up front, I says, look, I can clean your carburetor, but realistically speaking, I've priced them out already at that point. I says, I can get you a brand new carburetor for $12. It will cost you more in labor if I clean it and put the old one on and get it running for you. And I says, I would rather just buy a brand new one, stick it on there, and you pay for the new one. I will take his carburetor and I will clean it, and I will put it on another piece of equipment that needs a carburetor due to the same problem. I will do that, and I'm not going to say or charge for a brand new carburetor because that's not the way I operate. It will be listed on the for sale ad as a rebuilt, freshly cleaned carburetor. That's the way it's going to read, because that's going to be what it is. And I do give other incentives for people to be my customers. I like to take care of my customers. I guarantee my stuff. Terms and what that exactly means, like I said, you can decide what kind of incentives, if you want to offer any, to your customers that you want to present. But make your sales, make your equipment and you as a person more attractive to buyers by offering them value for the money. And that means something different to a lot of people. But everyone can see the value in something. You can sit there and say, I did that, I guarantee it. My word. If something happens with it, I will take care of you, I will take care of it. And you can put terms and conditions on that if you want to. I do personally, because there is a certain amount of expectation there that something is going to work when you purchase it, even if it's purchased used. And in some states, they actually have lemon laws that pertain to more than just vehicles. So you have to know what you're dealing with in your market. These things you should be aware of. It's not hard to take care of someone and have them be a repeat customer. That would be my choice. That would be my preference, is that they would become a repeat customer and they were happy with the way they were treated by myself and by the equipment that they got. They were happy with that. I would rather have that be the case than have someone give me a bad review online simply because I said, well, first come, first serve. And then on top of that, sold as is means sold as is. And that's just not how I operate. So just some food for thought there. If you guys find this information helpful, useful, wordy, you want to tell me to limit how much I talk. I mean, I try to. I can't always do that, but I do try. I'm not trying to waste your time with a bunch of useless information or repeating myself, but there is some things that bear repeating, and I just feel like it's very important, if you're trying to get into this, to know exactly what you're doing, know what you're getting into, and know how to determine whether or not it's something you should do, something that's going to work for you, be profitable for you, and just make sure that you're making it work for you, and definitely working for your customers, and make it profitable for yourself, but know your market. These are the things that are important, and I hope you found this information helpful, useful. Maybe something was said that you didn't know before, or maybe something was said that you had known before and forgot. Maybe it was refreshed. I hope this encourages you to get into mechanics. Small engine or full-size engine, doesn't matter. I mean, to me, it's all interesting. It really is. The way these things work. Sometimes they're a pain in the neck to work on, I'm not going to lie. But I do generally enjoy it. And I can blow off some steam. I can wrench on a motor and I can get that thing going, and I'm not going to lie, I have had at times yelling matches like, why won't you work? It's like, I don't know what's going on with you, but when I figure it out, I cannot even describe just how that makes me feel. It is such an elation, a good feeling when you figure out what is wrong with a piece of equipment and you get it operational, and not just operational, but to the point where it's like it's brand new. These are things that can be fixed and reused and put back to use. Giving someone a piece of equipment that I know is going to work for them, and it's going to be good, and it's going to be something that they're going to get some good use out of. These are the things that are important to me. I hope they're important to you. I hope that this encourages you to keep it up and learn something new if you haven't figured this stuff out before and you're getting into it. I hope this encourages you to keep it up and get into it and realize what it is. And if you don't know something, I hope the video helps you with finding that out. I really do. If you like this video, find it information that's useful. Again, I thank you for watching. I know I've been windy on this one. I do apologize for that. I will try not to be on my next video or the following videos. But I am going to try to get back into this and hopefully have other subjects to cover for you guys to let you know. This is important to know the basics, but it's also going to get more extensive than this. So I will try to cover the basics on a regular basis, because I know that the videos get old after a while and maybe they don't get as many views as they could. But I hope that I keep people apprised of what these things are and how to work on them, and how to save themselves some time and money. That's the most important thing when you're doing these things. Save time and money. If it's your equipment, great. I hope that I helped you work on your own equipment. If it's something that you're looking to flip, I hope I helped you make a buck. Simple as that. This is Adam, the Shade Tree Mechanic. If you found this information helpful, please send a like, send a share, comment, whatever. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you very much.